video about crybabies. It's gonna be TTL Flash Photography. You pussy. I'll edit that out later. You see this speed light? It's an SB910, yeah. It's basically the same price as Fuji's new speed light, which is $500. This one's been replaced by the SB5000. Yeah, $550. Yeah, see this old speed light here? Yeah, sure. SB26. You can kind of grab these all day long for $30. So, let's say like $550 at $30. Forgetting the fact that the SB910 is just a wee more powerful. They're both the same thing. The only difference being is this has some neat little douchebag features on the back here that are not very useful for most things. Now they do communicate. You actually can go into remote mode, and that's interesting, where the speedlights communicate with each other, and it is useful. The smarter the cameras get, the dumber the photographer gets. Now here's something you're not realizing. You see on this brand new expensive camera, there's this little sensor right here. On this really, really cheap old speedlight right here, there's the same sensor. It lets you shoot this in auto mode. In some instances, auto is more accurate than TTL. TTL should stand for, it means through the lens. Oh no, it means tiny thought lighting. It means you turn your brain off and you're a douche. You ought to call it le pouce de TTL. Wouldn't that be what it calls? I've only had 2 years of French, but I've forgotten all of it. It would be TTL de la pouce. Pouce de la TTL. Lazy photography. Now, what is TTL really necessary and recommended for? Like wedding photography on the fly during the ceremony? Not during the actual ceremony in the chapel, but I mean the afterwards, cutting the cake, all the idiots dancing around, getting drunk. Okay. On the fly stuff. Photojournalism, paparazzi work. Yeah, very useful for that. Photojournalism, paparazzi, wedding ceremonies, sports and action. You're on the sidelines. Usually you can't use, say, a speed light then anyway, but outdoor sports and action is quite useful. Yeah. Actually, for outdoor sports and action, I would rather have this. See, what you're not getting is $550. By the way, both of these things are rocking the same capacitors and the same xenon tubes. $40, $550. It doesn't matter whose TTL speed. You're tied in too, and you're tied in when firmware changes. And if you buy like an off-brand speed light, it's like, well, I can also do high-speed sync flash photography with this. That's true. That is another useful feature of this. It lets you, it pulses the light. You actually can't see it. It looks like a single burst, but what the flash is actually doing is going, it drops the power significantly because the power profile of charge and drop happens so fast that it can't be very powerful. That is a useful feature. That is why having one TTL speed light is nice for your primary camera systems. If you're a working pro, even 2 or 3. For most of you that are not photojournalists and you're not shooting wedding ceremonies, you don't need this. Don't spend $550. This neat little flash here with the wireless trigger, I don't care if you shoot a Canon, a Fuji, a Pentax, a Nikon, it works the same way. Stick it in manual mode. Well, you do know that when you change your shutter speed, as long as you're within your sync, flash photography or stroboscopic photography is not really affected by your shutter speed. You're shooting a 30th of a second or 250th of a second, the flash is dropping so fast, wham! It's getting through your shutter curtains. It is, as long as it's within the sync speed. Okay? So then you know that at a given aperture, and you'll realize, like I'm going to shoot at f2.8 here, or when I'm out shooting with my speed light, which is just dumb manual photography, I'm going to be shooting at either f2.8 or like f5.6 or f2.8 or f8. You will know that the average working distance that you have, that you can dial in the power settings and you'll be right there. You are not tied in like a slave. This speed light is good for my Fuji, is as good for my Nikons. I own and buy a bunch of these for a reason. You know, 550 bucks. Let's see, how many times does that go to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basically, 10 of these for the cost of one of these. I can do a whole lot more with 3, 4, 5 of these than I can with one of those. You're also tied in with TTL cables as well. You know, it's like, okay, now you got a TTL speedlight. Well, isn't that special? Now you can buy some really expensive TTL wireless triggers. Or you can buy an expensive TTL cable. You can get an off-brand TTL cable, it's not that expensive. You're tied in like a slave. This is something every working professional photographer knows. They know that TTL has its place and TTL does not have its place. And all those times and things that you think you need a TTL speedlight, you don't. Auto mode is more than good enough, and sometimes it is more accurate than TTL. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. When it comes to taking meter readings, and I'm using these remotely and wirelessly in dumb mode, i.e. manual, I absolutely would not want TTL, because then it's going to adjust it arbitrarily. Then my light meter becomes useless. I want to manually dial in the power. It's like, okay, I'm going to set my lighting ratios at a rate of 4 to 1 on my rim lighting versus my primary, and dial in the power. I wouldn't even want TTL in that situation. You know, all this professional studio lighting gear back here, none of that shit, doesn't matter who makes it, works off TTL. Okay, it does not work off TTL. This is also the reason why all professionals that work with stroboscopic tools, strobe tools, I said stroboscopic, strobe tools have light meters. You're just tied in like a slave and you're pissing away a lot of money on these. You know what this has that this also has? There's a power port on the front of this for wedding photography. Well, guess what? There's a power port on the front of this too. For wedding photography in auto mode, this is actually perfectly fine. It senses right here. The sensor works the same. Once you dial in the ISO, okay, it senses the same for quenching the flash output on this. Even though it's a Nikon speedlight, it works exactly the same on a Nikon, a Fuji, a Canon. It doesn't matter. Get this le pouce de TTL out of your brain about, I'm trying to save you money, you know. You need to learn how the hell to set manual lighting control like every professional does. Do you think that a very, very few of them do wireless TTL flash photography? Very, very few. The rest of them are doing exactly what I'm doing, same thing. Manual mode or auto. Don't need it. Don't need it. I dare you to go find a street photographer that is using TTL wireless flash photography. There may be one or two out there, but most of them are not. You need to learn how the hell. It's like, I told you, your shutter speed doesn't affect your speed light. With your shutter speeds of 60th of a second or 250th of a second, your flash pulse, boom, it's getting in there. It's regulated by your aperture. So if you know you're working on the street at f5.6 or f8 or f2, you will know what to dial in. And you know if your common working distance is 8 to 14 feet, you'll sit there with the same power setting for hours maybe. And all your shots will come out fine. You're exposing for your ambient, you're raising for your subject matter, your fill. That gives you the dynamic range compression that allows you to manipulate your specular, your diffuse, and your shadows in Lightroom. Really, that is what it is. It's speedlight work also is for color saturation, no duh there, but the primary use of that fill flash not only give definition and illuminate the shadows, of course, but is for dynamic range compression, and that makes for the beautiful photographs, the stuff that people admire the most. I mean, portraiture, outdoor portraiture. It's like, well, why does so and so have a speedlight? It's like 2 p.m. in the evening, and the sun is beating down like hell, because that lighting sucks. I'm going to stick an orange gel on this. I'm going to pop it out here. I'm going to mimic sunset lighting. I'm going to define where the diffuse, the specular, and the shadows fall on the subject. I'm going to stop down with a neutral density filter and do whatever. When you dominate the lighting, and you can give the middle finger to the 2 p.m. sunlight. The lighting between 11 a.m. and like 6 p.m. just sucks. And when you can give the middle finger to the sun and go screw you, and you can define the lighting that you want that gives the best illumination to the subject matter that you're trying to define with the image in your head. So there's two types of photographers. There are people that are real photographers and can actually envision the light, and then they can make the light appear how they want. And there are other people that can only see what their eyeballs see. It's like, this is what my eyeballs see. This is the shot I'm taking. That's unfortunate. There are actually benefits to working both ways, but those who actually truly succeed and get the paid gigs are those who can actually see what they can create rather than what's in front of them as well, and that's the tool for this. And TTL is just nothing other than a tool of slavery that does have its place, but it's holding you back, man. TTL is no different than shooting in puss mode. It's like, I'm going to stick the... It's just like throwing the roulette wheel. I'm going to let the camera decide my shutter speed, my aperture. Stick it in puss mode. TTL Flash Photography has its place for sports action, paparazzi, photojournalistic, news work, the fast-moving in and out, close and far away, reception work, like a wedding. Everything else, you don't need it. Ain't no need to be spending $500 on a speed lab when you can spend $40 on something like this, okay? Get it, got it, good. Bye.